celebrating 3 years of existence in the energy sector in the country has brought together players both in the private and public sector in the country to have conversations around how Kenya can achieve its energy goals as envisioned in Vision 2030.
So now we are comparable. And because so many people keep on saying power in Kenya is expensive, let's open our eyes and look what is happening across East Africa, and you'll realize that it is comparable. Thank you.
And I'm the Managing Director of Soitec Kenya. Soitec stands for Solar and Wind Technology. And in Kenya, we've been active here since 2015. We have a pipeline of wind and solar projects that are in early stage development and in various stages of feasibility as well. So as he mentioned, we noticed demand creation became an issue in the country and started looking at other ways we could develop energy projects in Kenya. And this led us to what George alluded to earlier, the green hydrogen economy, not looking at electricity itself as a good, but looking how we can unlock industrial pathways that can create demand for electricity. So around 2019, we ventured into Power to X, or what is called green hydrogen. And since then, we've seen a bit of traction with the regulator, with the policymakers, even interest from the EU and DFIs to see how we can create this green hydrogen economy in Kenya and how it could realize other benefits for us in terms of climate change, adaptation, mitigation, how we can get access to such finance for Power to X projects, and also see how we can create jobs and an economy in line with the economic blueprint we have in this country.
Well, today we are concentrating on the electricity sector. The first thing that I'd like to say that we do, of course, and I'm happy that we have our colleagues here, is we make sure that we give you power at the best price that is economically possible. So between the regulator ourselves and the utility, KPLC, we calculate the best cost at which we can give you power, and you'll be seeing more developments as we go along. And that is the one thing that I'd like to emphasize on, that in as much as people may complain about the cost of power, it is comparable in the region. And we have a very stringent process on how we calculate these charges. And we promise you, we're giving you the best price that we can based on the assets that we're using to give you the power.
Reed, I run the charging infrastructure team as well as the local manufacturing team for Basigo. We have 15 more buses in the port, Bandarini Saizi, and we expect them to be up here in Nairobi by early next month, finished and ready to go, with about 5 more SACCOs in and around Nairobi. So we need to talk. I love everything you guys are saying, and we are on the demand side. We have a lot of it. If you've got extra power at night, I've got stuff to fill those extra thermal things just going out into the wind. Lete huko kwetu tunaweza kuitumia.
New service industries, like we've seen the data centers that are coming up. They really take a bit of power, and we've seen a lot of requests, Google, Liquid Telecom, wanting to set shop in both either in Nairobi or in Mombasa. And those have been driving the kind of demand that we are seeing. We've seen a bit of expansion in the industrial sector. The other day you saw the president opening up a plant in Kilifi for DEFCI. DEFCI is using our power. It's not 100% captive power. Their bill is quite high. In fact, it's one of the highest, our highest customer. And of course, we are aware that most of the large power customers are moving towards captive power, self-generation, and trying to support that. that is a good thing, because at the end of the day, they're using renewable sources, which are resources within the country, and they're helping us conserve the little resources that we have as a country. Because KPLC is not all about making money, it's also sustainably using the resources that you have in the country. So we, as a country, or as a company, also is looking at driving that demand, and that is why you've seen KPLC coming up at the forefront in terms of e-mobility. We've partnered with Basigo. We have been working very closely with our large power customers. If you look at the way even we do our connection, we are trying to move them to higher voltages from, not say the 415, we are now moving them to 220, 220 kV, 132, 66, where we have less losses, less interference. It is much more stable and good for their business. So we are trying to encourage them or connect them at those levels, offering alternative supply points, so that then their reliability is, quality of supply is totally assured. We know if they bring 1,000 buses tomorrow, maybe the system cannot hold.
Yep.
So we just have to be careful to spread the charging stations in a way that then the entire system can be able to hold. So that is being done.
Yep.
And we in a short while you'll see us rolling down the framework under which then we can work closely together with the association of. There's an association that you have that has all the players within the e-mobility association, so that then we agree on how we can be able to plant. And we want to have the private sector come on board to drive that. But KPLC just wants to ensure that the ecosystem is in a way that it can support. The network we have can support the various charging stations at whatever they are.
We've got 17 buses, and we're going to be buying a lot of power just for those 17 buses. By the end of next year, we're hoping to be at 100 buses. By the year after that, 500. So we may not be in Kwale or in Kilifi with Devki in a single place, but we as a company are bringing transport. And the cool thing is, you don't have to import the power. This is Kenyan-made power propelling all of these cars. So the local content that we have is actually provided by all the people in this room, rather than the guys kind of up in the drier northern areas in the Middle East.
This area is trying to unify regulation. It's trying to unify regulation for the East Africa community, so the countries can move together. We have things such as harmonization of tariff setting. We have other working streams such as electrification. I think Kenya is it 74% now in terms of electrification? Yes. So we're trying to bring the other countries along. So from a regulatory point of view, is more combining these regulatory aspects and bringing them together in terms of having a unified regulatory framework. We're doing a petroleum demand forecasting for the next 20 years. We're doing that model in Naivasha today, actually, and I kept asking. We can't see a dip. We can't see a dip in demand occasioned by the anticipated increase in use of green vehicles.
It is of hydrogen economy and how these projects will be phased, what captive use of electricity they will require, and whether it will be, to what extent this could be able to help the economy.
If you go to Ghana today, they are load shedding. If you go to South Africa, they are load shedding. South Africa has an installed capacity of 52,000. Yeah, but they are barely reaching that. I was calculating, I was reading through, their availability factor is way low. Those machines are old. Ghana, the same problem. Ghana, they were load shedding because their availability factor was 74% of their installed capacity. Kenya we are moving towards that direction. These machines are getting old, so we shouldn't look at the installed capacity number. So as he says, it is good to start planning, and that is why we signed contract upfront to support us in terms of new generation.
Going to see Wawero has put panels and is selling to the grids, and I've bought a new car and I've built a new house, and you want to do the same as me. So at the end of the day, somebody is going to end up with so many, shall we call them electricpreneurs, and then they will not and they still have to pay their original plans. So we're trying to avoid that scenario. We're not saying we don't encourage business. We're just saying that it's very important to monitor that part. So the amendments haven't gone through yet, but we're trying to reduce. We're trying to get more visibility on that area.
We run those to about 130 to 140% any given day. So a bus on average is consuming about 4,500 kilowatt hours a month. Between the 17 buses is about 75,000 kilowatt hours. We're going to be adding a few more bigger buses later in the year. So we're looking at kind of 1 million kilowatt hours just for these 19 buses that we'll be running before we bring a little bit more. We may be up to kind of 2 million by end of the year. Nominal range is 250, depending on 250 kilometers. So depending on, a lot of it is on driver behavior, the road conditions, and a little bit of the weather. But most of our buses are doing kind of 220, 230 on a given day, come back for a small top up, and then they'll do another kind of 120 on that day. So most of them are PTAing over 300 kilometers on any given day.
Comment about what your general feeling of this event has been today in terms of realizing conversations around the energy sector in the country.
I think the conversation has been good. It was well attended. The topics of discussions were very relevant, addressing some of the key issues that are coming up. Remember, the energy sector is still not a very big sector, a 3,100 megawatt capacity economy. Of course, there is need to address the issues of renewable energy, which were discussed in terms of ensuring our energy mix is up to 100% if possible. We are lucky Kenya is currently doing 92%, and there is a drive towards the new plants coming on board to ensure that we move it even closer to 100%. So I believe it has addressed some of the issues that are pertinent to the current discussions.
Another question that I want to pick up from you at the sidelines of this event is that you're very keen on telling Kenyans, look, our power in the country is inexpensive. I mean, KPLC comes to the fore every time things happen around the country, around the energy sector. Could you reiterate the same sentiments a bit? Talk to them now on the sidelines of this event.
Oh, okay. So the cost of power is an important subject to everybody because energy drives the economy. And looking around and seeing the cost of power in Kenya comparable to what we have in East Africa or the larger sub-Saharan Africa, the power is comparable. The price is comparable given the kind of sources of energy that we use to generate this power, and then our network structure and our economy in generally. So I would say the power cost is comparable. The issue that comes up every other day that electricity is expensive is it might be true or not true, but from my perspective, I believe if you compare electricity with other utilities that we are or services that we are getting, say from the mobile phone, we buy airtime every other day. As an individual, you use the airtime as an individual on your phone, and let's say you buy it at 100 shillings per day. If you buy 100 shillings unit per day, that's roughly like about 4 units. You can use the 4 units as a family, not as an individual, for the next 1 or 2 days, depending on the usage. So if on average the cost of power compared to other services or utilities that we procure as individuals or households could be said to be cheaper. From my perspective, it is cheaper. An individual can spend 4,000 a day on airtime or per month on airtime, and barely spends 4,000 per month as a household, powering all his appliances, and yet we still say electricity is expensive.
Samson, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Anytime. It has been a successful event. Talk to me about why this was important today.
This is really important because at the moment, the market is changing quite a bit. There are so many changes that are happening, and it's about time now we come and have an integrating kind of conversation. So how can we ensure that all these private players get an opportunity to access whatever markets that they see as targets while ensuring the whole still functions? And that's where the conversation around CNI players, the ones who do the solar plants within the industries, the IPPs, the transmission people, how does the whole ecosystem work together. And it's really a conversation that is beyond any one organization in the sector. And that's why, as the Electricity Sector Association, we did make a very conscious decision to try and have a platform where the private sector can also plug into this conversation and pull in all the other actors from the public sector.
Do you think conversations around taking monopoly of QPLC, which has been a sole player in this particular sector, is coming out with your association as part of that conversation?
Yes, and it's not just us. Honestly, it's the Energy Act. It's the law. The law actually now requires that we start thinking around how do we then allow for other people to, they call it reticulation within the Energy Act. But in principle, this basically means carving out certain areas to allow for other distributors. But at the same time, we must ensure that the system still works, that KPLC can still actually make a profit, because this is a public body that we have invested in as a country. So we can't just abandon it. We must ensure that even as we make our changes, the entire sector remains sustainable, and KPLC is a core part of that.
Listening to majority of the contributions here today, it looks as if conversations on hydrogen power in the country, conversations on e-mobility in the country. Do you think as a sector we are a bit late in adopting these new forms of energy?
I think the best way to answer that is just to say that there's no other better time. It's today or yesterday. So let's just harness the moment that we are in. KPLC, the private sector, the government, the regulator, everybody's thinking in one direction. Let's bring our energies together. And remember we have this petroleum issue. Now specifically looking at e-mobility. We have this petroleum issue. The prices are going high. We don't have enough dollars. We need to find a way to move our reliance on petroleum to some other kind of mobility, and e-mobility provides that chance. And the same thing with green hydrogen. We are not talking about producing hydrogen just to have hydrogen. Hydrogen itself is an input to locally made fertilizer, and fertilizer is the other problem we have in this country, and we keep importing and subsidizing fertilizer, while we could use the same amount of money to develop our own fertilizer production industry. So these conversations around green energy and green hydrogen and e-mobility are very, very crucial for us as Kenyans at the moment.
Very much. Just 15 seconds. What do you expect from the sector in 2023?
In 2023, I expect a lot more conversations, and the conversations moving towards action. So we need to start seeing, let's sit down and see how we incentivize e-mobility and actually do it, not just talk about it. Same to green hydrogen, same to enabling trading power within the region, because our country desperately needs that kind of intervention.
Thank you very much. Anytime, man. This was lovely. Okay. To kindly introduce yourself and your association as well, and tell us exactly what it is that you want to achieve in the economy in this conversation for energy.
Okay, my name is Catherine Irura, and I'm the Managing Director of Soitec Kenya Limited, and I also serve at the Electricity Sector Association of Kenya as a secretary. And the big conversation we've had today is about demand creation. In Kenya, the narrative over the past years has been about demand creation in the sector, because our economic blueprint, the Kenya Vision 2030, is anchored around increased generation of electricity. But we can see our economy has not been growing as much as has been projected, and this now has affected the capacity of new projects being onboarded to the grid for sale of electricity to KPLC. So the big conversation here has been ways in which we can create demand for electricity. You've seen e-mobility being mentioned as a pathway. On our end, we are keen on pushing a green hydrogen economy in Kenya, because it creates potential for industrial applications that are energy intensive, that use electricity, and also prevent wastage of electricity, because one of the things you heard during the panel was how electricity is vented at night in geothermal fields. So finding innovative ways where we can generate more electricity to grow industry, create more sustainable jobs, and even in line with the economic goals we have in our country.
When you look at the overall energy sector in the country, would you say that we are a bit late in adopting this, what you like to call new sources of energy, like hydrogen and now conversation around e-mobility? Are we late or we are still on track in terms of the adoption?
I think we are not late, and I would say because we have the right resources, we have the right energy resources, renewable electricity to power this energy transition in Kenya. Since our grid is 90% green, as you would say, all we need now is higher investment in infrastructure, better licensing conditions, and a clear regulatory framework on how this electricity can be used, from where it can be used, because the market is evolving. When my company came into the market, we were developing projects just to sell to KPLC. You've heard that many people are now generating their own energy for industrial use, for own use. So we have to we are keeping with the trends, and now we are seeing potential not only to generate electricity to sell to KPLC, but to build industries where we are importing, for example, fertilizer and fuel. If there are innovative ways you can produce them locally and substitute with imports and make them competitive and cheap while building our own economy.
It is 2023, let me say that, because now the markets are going on a break. In 15 seconds or so, what is your biggest expectation next year in as much as the energy sector in the country is concerned?
My biggest expectation is actually work that's been in progress currently. We are working on a green hydrogen strategy in Kenya. I think I talked previously about having a green hydrogen economy in Kenya that has higher consumptive use of electricity. It's work in progress with the Ministry of Energy and other policymakers, and they have invited the private sector to play a role in shaping the vision of the future and where we see this hydrogen economy going. So with that, we will see more clear regulations on wheeling of electricity, where, for example, I can generate my electricity off where my industry is. For example, I can have an industry in Kiambu and I'm able to generate the electricity in Kajiado and feed that plant. So we need frameworks like that, and better transmission infrastructure, and basically making our grid strong enough to be able to take up this increased capacity. So infrastructure expansion is one key area, and better regulatory enabling environment is another, I would say. Yeah.
Thank you very much for joining us. It was lovely. Thank you very much. All right. The bigger news is that you're coming into the market, and your introduction, especially this week upon the announcement that a new fleet of buses is coming into the country, is there a working relationship between you and KPLC, since they're going to be the main powerhouse for your buses?
Is there a working relationship with us? Yes, there is. They've set up a EV dedicated office, and we're working with them to get extra special help on site identification and just engineering help to spec out what we need.
So all we know is that Basigo right now is working under the proper guidance of KPLC. Is that what you're saying?
No, we're working with KPLC.
Fantastic. Let's then understand this. You're coming into the market when a big player who came in as an electric company, Nopia, right, is leaving the country. Does that act as a damper to your business, or gives you more reason to come into the market?
It gives us more reason to come in. We are addressing a completely different market. The matatu and the public transport sector is one that carries close to 3.5 million people into and out of Nairobi every single day. And there's 10,000 matatus that we can tap into, replacing them diesel with clean electric transport. So different market, serving the same Kenyan people.
You did mention that you're working with the circles, matatu circles in the country. Could you talk to us about that sort of a working arrangement? How does it go?
We sell directly to the SACCOs. So we've got a couple that run between Thika and CBD, and other ones that run between Kikuyu CBD, and other ones that are running around the Eastlands area. So we sell the bus directly to them, and then we lease the operations of the bus back to them on a per kilometer drive basis.
Cost is going to be a bigger conversation when it comes to running these businesses. For any other person asking themselves the question, is it cheaper to run an EV bus as compared to a fossil fuel bus? What will you say to them, and what is the cost implication?
So the cost, we sell the bus to them at an equivalent cost for the diesel bus, and then we lease the operations back to them on a pay as you drive, pay per kilometer rate, and that is 20 shillings per kilometer plus VAT. So it comes out to significantly cheaper. Depends on how good your bus is, new or old, and so what the actual savings are. But by our calculations, it's significantly better.
Talk to us about 2023. Are we going to see Basigo continue with this venture, or it's going to be like this in the long term as you try and see how the market is going to react?
So we've got 2 more larger buses coming in a little bit later, early next year, and then we are starting full assembly manufacturing of those larger buses by Q3. So we hope to have an additional 60 to 70 buses on the road before the end of the year, totaling about 100 buses.
Thank you very much for taking your time.
Thank you very much.
All right. The biggest takeaway from this particular meeting has been how the national energy sector cake can be shared properly within the public sector and the private sector, and whether Kenya is up to speed with meeting the energy goals by 2030 is also a conversation that has come to the fore. For Look at Business, Simba, Elijah Charles Kaige.
Hapa kazi tu inaendelea kuwasaka na kuwatambua wale ambao wanafanya kazi extraordinary na zile kazi za kujituma.
Biashara yote unaambiangwa, as long as you have a plan, you can do it. Our service is about kufurahisha the customer.
Mpenzi mtazamaji, hii ni Hapa Kazi Tu.
Vera Beauty and Fashion College is focused on being the leading technical and vocational training institute in the region. Our team possesses in-depth knowledge and extensive experience in the industry, offering thorough training in cosmetology, hairdressing, interior design, creative arts, training of trainers, nail technology, and fashion design. With branches in Nairobi, Thika, Meru, Eldoret, and now in Mombasa, our courses ensure that learners are completely equipped with knowledge, competency, and employability skills. Enroll today to be a part of a center of excellence.
Good to have you join us on Heart to Heart.
We bring you stories of people who, despite the pressures they experienced, still trusted God to see them through.
The seeds that was sown in me helped me navigate and overcome that period of my life.
New testimonies, new insights, and even better revelation of the good things God has in store for us.
There is always a blessing waiting for someone in every episode.
So the conversations on democratizing the electricity sector, or you would say the energy sector in the country, or the electricity subsector in the country, depending on exactly where you come from, is conversations that indeed, when you look at them and hold some, it is Kenya just scratching the surface. So that particular event by ESSAC is really pointing towards what has been an ongoing conversation. Because if you currently come to the country and talk to EPRA, and you did hear EPRA speak in that event, are saying, well, majority of our tariffs are already predetermined by the Energy, Petroleum and Regulation Authority of Kenya. But then if you then bring in more private players into the country, players who can be able to sell electricity to Kenya Power, which is the main distributor, then you'll be talking about market-driven tariffs. And they're saying, if you look at where we are in the country, you cannot really rely on market-driven tariffs because, again, a conversation of renewable energy occupying maybe 100% of the energy grid in the country is also not possible currently. So it is still a scratch on the surface, and even conversations around Kenya adopting e-mobility. People will look around and say, we are late to that conversation, because then it's when the likes of Kenyan and the likes of Kenya Power are talking about coming up with the electricity charging grid in the country. So you will see exactly where we are. Not there yet, but then conversations towards achieving that are already taking center stage. You know what they say? Better late than never. But when you look at the entire energy sector conversation in the country, again, you're going to go back and say it is when we are trying to take shape in terms of democratizing it to the point where independent players, the CNAs, would come in then and also have a bigger cake of the energy sector in the country. That's exactly how we continue with this conversation. But for now, let's take a look at what we have for you in terms of our biggest news headlines business-wise once we come back. Weeks after the Nairobi County government gave a directive for long-distance PSV vehicles to drop off and pick up passengers at the Green Park terminus, the directive has taken effect with passengers lauding the move. Ian Ketani reports.
The directive has taken effect with various passengers applying the affected routes, supporting the move as it is now easier for them, with the new location open enough as compared to the central business district.
Naona wamefanya poa. Juu at least ni mahali pako spacious, alafu pia ni mahali pako mtu ako able kupata mtu wake kiurahisi.
Mimi naona ni pazuri kwa sababu nilikuwa nashangaa tutakaa wapi, huku nako kutakaaje, lakini naona ni kuzuri, sipokuwa kutoka hapa kwenda town ni vile wametuletea mabasi.
You compare Afya Center, there used to be a lot of congestion. And then too, when we come here, you'll discover that, to me, I'm also seeing that they are creating some economy to these borders. Because you reach here, you pick a border. So in a way, you are creating employment, which is okay. I support it.
Jamu haiko kama kawa siku zingine. Sometimes, initially, ungefika somewhere say Kijabe or Kabete, then you start with the jam. Ningefika saa 7 na nitoke kwa gari saa 10. Today, nimefika tu hapa in 30 minutes I'm off the vehicle, which means kuna mabadiliko mazuri.
However, some of the drivers expressed their frustrations with the move, arguing that it won't solve the snarl up within the CBD, as already the business has been largely affected.
Hapa ni mkuzuri kabisa. Lazima tutakuwa tuna jam kubwa tu Jabar tu. Jibare zote za Western zikuja pande yote. Na za Central zingine na bado tutakuwa tuna jam tu bado. Yangu ni Nyanyuki. Nairobi na Kuru direct hivyo. Kama kwetu hivyo si mzuri kabisa hivyo. Si mzuri Kama sasa niliingia hapa 6 nizenda bado.
Other drivers lauded the move, urging the government to ensure all matatu circles comply.
At least jam itaisha. Alasa rada iko sawa. Magari za kutoka Nakuru sasa zinakuja zina drop hapa. Lakini I hope magari zote, unajua kuna zingine zinakuwa na manini huko manyumba huko. So ikifika mahali ati kusemekane ati hizo hazitatoka tao. Hizi kama Morora ni hivyo, kuna hizi kinatuenikia hizo. So unajua hapo tutakuwa si tuhesabu hasara. Unajua bila wengi watakuwa wanakuja zaidi. Watakuwa wanaenda wapi? Wanaenda hapo tao. So mimi naona si mbaya, lakini waangalie kila side, wasiangalie side moja.
Passengers being dropped off will be ferried to the Central Business District using commuter shuttles at a cost of 20 shillings. After the Nairobi City County directed the public service vehicles plying the Nyanza, Western and parts of Rift Valley routes to drop and pick up passengers here at the Green Park terminus in Nairobi, the reception is mixed. Some drivers are happy while others are not, and most of the passengers are very happy with the move. This 250 million facility is set to be the drop-off of many passengers coming from those routes. But the question is, after how long will it be fully effective? Ian Keitani, Lookuptv, Nairobi.
Ian Ketani with that one. Now, data by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics (KNBS) indicates that Kenya's monthly income rose at the fastest pace in 6 years to 20,123 in what has been attributed to the recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. The country's gross national income per capita grew 11.6% to hit 241,467 shillings last year, up from 216,337 in 2020.
With Kenya's economy still rebounding from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, the continued recovery continues to be reflected in Kenya's pay as income rose at a faster pace last year. Kenya's economy rebounded by 7.5% in 2021, which was a huge jump from the 0.3% contraction an year earlier. The country's economy has continued to grow at an average of 5.0% annually over the last decade, despite the contraction experienced in 2020, with campaigners indicating that the pay gap between the rich and the poor growing in the country. A report by Kenya Fight Inequality Alliance shows that just 8,300 individuals in Kenya own the same wealth as the rest of the country's over 45 million people, and the richest 10% earn 23 times more than the poorest 10%. The majority of the 2.9 individuals employed in the formal sector are domiciled in the lower wage bracket, with only 358,833 or 15% earning more than 100,000 shillings per month. Labor Department data also indicates that Kenyans 1.18 million workers, or 40% of the workforce, are paid below 50,000 per month, with at least 51,770 earning below the national average of 20,123 shillings. Nairobi, with a contribution of 27.5% of the overall GDP, is by far Kenya's richest county and is more than 3.5 times larger in economic terms than Kiambu, the second richest county, with a 5.9% share of the GDP. Mombasa is at 5.29%, Nakuru at 4.9%, Machakos at 3.5%, complete the list of Kenya's top 5 wealthiest counties in GDP terms. For Lookup Business, Edwin John Mokora.
Electric bus company Basigo has announced plans to work directly with Matatu SACCOs in the country to boost their electric bus business in the country. Basigo head of manufacturing and charging infrastructure, Raid Ranson, has said that the move is informed by the close partnership with the Kenya Power and Lighting Company that intends to create an electric charging grid in the country.
Is there a working relationship with us? Yes, there is. They've set up a EV dedicated office, and we're working with them to get extra special help on site identification and just engineering help to spec out what we need. It gives us more reason to come in. We are addressing a completely different market. The matatu and the public transport sector is one that carries close to 3.5 million people into and out of Nairobi every single day, and there's 10,000 matatus that we can tap into replacing them diesel with clean electric transport. So different market, serving the same Kenyan people. We sell directly to the SACCOs. So we've got a couple that run between Thika and CBD, and other ones that run between Kikuyu CBD, and other ones that are running around the Eastlands area. So we sell the bus directly to them, and then we lease the operations of the bus back to them on a per kilometer drive basis. So the cost, we sell the bus to them at an equivalent cost for the diesel bus, and then we lease the operations back to them on a pay as you drive, pay per kilometer rate, and that is 20 shillings per kilometer plus VAT. So it comes out to significantly cheaper. Depends on how good your bus is, new or old, and so what the actual savings are, but by our calculations, it's significantly better. So we've got 2 more larger buses coming in a little bit later, early next year, and then we are starting full assembly manufacturing of those larger buses by Q3. So we hope to have an additional 60 to 70 buses on the road before the end of the year, totaling about 100 buses.
Moving on, Diamond Trust Bank has become the first Kenyan bank to train its front office staff in basic Kenyan Sign Language and a disability etiquette in a bid to enhance financial services access and inclusion in celebration of the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. Speaking during the ceremony, DTB Finance and Strategy Director Al-Karim Jibwa has said the move is meant to integrate persons living with disabilities in the banking sector, which is in line with the bank's customer-centric strategy, boosting strategy.
So we are very excited to have partnered with the Deaf Institute of Communication and Sign Language because it has allowed us to equip our staff to communicate to our critical stakeholders, our customers, in a way that we can impact their lives, that we can service them to their expectations. And through this partnership, we've been able to train over 50 of our employees to learn the sign language and to then apply it as they interact with our customers who are hearing impaired. Communication is at the heart of relationships. And at DTB, relationships speak to our very being. And if we are going to be able to communicate across all class of our shareholders, and if we remain true to our purpose of driving inclusion and equity, then it's important that we are equipped to talk to all range of our customers. And so in enabling our people to learn the sign language, we've capacitated them, we believe, to communicate this important stake of stakeholders, which is our customers.
We are very happy with the bank that they have the idea that there is this community of persons with disability that they felt they needed to include them in the financial services that they provide. And the only way to have done that in an adequate way is to empower and train the staff of the bank so that they are able to articulate their services much better. And we are very happy to have partnered with the DTB.
Stakeholders in the tourism sector in Embu County have been urged to raise up and work harder to recover from the losses brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic. Samia Dika with the details.
Speaking during the launch of Embu Festival that is expected to kick off from the 10th to 11th of this month, aimed at promoting local talents, Embu County Trade and Tourism CEC Jamal Runyenje has reiterated that the county government of Embu is keen to establish a good environment for tourism and investment.
Tuko na nia ya kusupport our hotel industry, tuko na nia ya kusupport our artists, ndio tuweze kuleta shilingi mpya ama shilingi ya kigeni Embu County. Kama department ya trade na tourism tumepanga kufanya kazi na ushirikiano wa karibu na wale ambao wanapanga Embu Festival na wasanii wetu na wafanyabiashara. Serikali na media na watu wa biashara wakikuja pamoja wataweza kulete watalii kwa mji wetu wa Embu.
Has noted that the county has great tourist sites that remain unexploited, adding that the recent visit by Richard Branson was an eye-opener that the county has plenty of destinations to visit this season.
That Embu County is becoming more and more attractive to our foreign and international guests. We are happy that Richard Branson was in this hotel about 2 months ago, and I'm very, very keen that next time we have such an important guest in this county, we will not let that marketing opportunity go to waste. We will have a photo session with them and they will tell the world that Embu is lovely. Asante sana.
Stakeholders have observed that Embu Festival will promote local artists to ensure they are nurtured to have a competitive edge internationally.
We already have 156 artists, local artists from Embu. We have young upcoming artists, so it's an opportunity to give them a platform to showcase their talent.
Tukionyesha chakula za kitamaduni, tutakuwa tukionyesha waimbaji hodari sana kutoka hapa Embu. Tutakuwa na activities mingi sana ambazo zinaguzia Embu County. Tutakuwa na dramas from Embu County, yani itakuwa ni siku ya watu wa Embu, ya watu kujivunia kuwa wa Embu na kuwa wametoka katika kaunti ya Embu.
Questions where we are right now as we are getting close and close to the end of the year. Means the majority of the markets now are officially in a holiday mood, meaning that what we've been tracking in the market in terms of the equity turnover is likely going to continue until the end of the year. Before then, we re-embark to trading at the beginning of 2023. On that note, let's do a quick scrap through the market and see exactly where we are on this of 5th of December 2022. That means that we have to go back to how we closed yesterday. Actually, no, yesterday, Friday, by 3 p.m. But I will be giving you where we are right now after 2 hours and 51 minutes of trading. I'll be telling you who is in the gainers list and the losers list, as well as the movers list. All right, let's begin by the biggest gainers from last Friday. And I can tell you, Scan Group is now back to the 10 shillings stock price value. That would take you back to 9.89. But from here we have Chumi, Express Limited and Liberty who've been essentially oscillating between top gainers and top losers. Express ending at 3 shillings, Chumi at 27 cents. You'd expect that will give you an 8% jump. And then we do have Liberty, by the way, is now at 4 shillings and 70. But you don't expect to be a bigger change, despite the percentage change then from those particular numbers, because with Scan Group coming at 10, you've seen the worst one that they've given us has been around 9.70 cents. So 30 cents on top of that stock. Same thing to Chumi. You see they get to 27 cents or 30 cents. They, by the way, they've not gotten to the 30 cents mark. And then they'll give you the 8% change. That was saying that not so much of an indication of exactly what is happening in the market. Those little movements now within the top gainers then would show you where the market sentiment is, that any little gain in what have been the poor performing stocks so far this year then would affect the market to this level. Let's move on to the next indicator, which is the biggest losers as of trading Friday. And we're gonna, again, shockingly, APSA is right here, but it doesn't really mean much. But I will tell you something about the surprise entrant in this list that you really do not get to see that much. Jubilee, again, you'd expect them to be here. APSA, that's a shock. At 11 shillings and 65 cents, 2.51 on the negative. We do have Safaricom here, and I will tell you why Safaricom is there. It's as if majority of the international investors then that would have banked into Safaricom have gone now officially on a break, because we do have them at 24 shillings and 20. That would be their lowest this year. You would say. That is a negative 1.22 from where they were Thursday. And I will tell you where they are this morning. We want to see whether they've actually recovered. And we do have TCL. It's coming in at 89 cents. That's the biggest news from that. Let's cross over to where the money was in terms of the biggest movers from our trading. And that was as of Friday. And you can see, despite Safaricom then being amongst the biggest losers from Friday, those numbers again would confirm exactly what's going on that particular stock, because Safaricom is at 5,275,400. KPLC is at 639,500. CIs is at 200. 400. But then if you look at Safaricom, they're the only ones who broke into the million mark, 5 million. But when Safaricom does 5 million, when they do 1 million, when they do 3 million, it shows you where the money was. That even when they subdued trading then in the market, Safaricom would only get 5.2 million. KPLC comes in with 639. So you can actually see how we had a low equity turnover if Safaricom had only 5 million, with the one that's coming in at KPLC 639. When you do what KPLC is doing currently at the market at 170, then you will see exactly why the market's closed on that particular low equity turnover. I will tell you again that right now we do have gainers. APSA jumping back by 1.69 because now they're doing a 12. Centum is back to 8. Everready is back to 69. But the bigger news around this one here is Safaricom is already at 449,100 in terms of volume. KPLC, APSA, and KCB are also among the leading now after 2 hours and 56 minutes of trading, you would say, because it's just 4 minutes to midday right now. Thank you very much for watching Look at Business. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kaige. I'll see you tomorrow as we close the year with conversations around real estate. Goodbye and good afternoon.